Hey everyone, Seth Screamo here with the best of Wooster, and today I have Barbara Knapic. We're going to learn a little bit about what she does and what she has going on in her life. Barb, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
Doing well. Glad that the weather seems to be warming up a little bit. So let's dive in right into the questions here. Can you explain the concept behind what you do and how you approach your work?
Sure can. I am a lawyer, and I have been a lawyer practicing for 40 years. And my approach to my profession is to approach everything hoping to get a win-win solution and allowing everybody to save face. I mean, the bottom line is nobody wants to see their lawyer. You're never going to come to a lawyer because you're in a happy circumstance in your life. There's some type of a conflict, there's some type of a disagreement, there's something that you need to have done or need to have corrected. And my approach is I consider myself a counselor at law. And my approach is let's get the best result for all the parties involved and move on. I am not a scorched earth lawyer.
What inspired you to pursue law? And was there a defining moment that led you here?
And we were separated. And at the same time, I had a journalism degree, had been working in journalism, came back to Ohio, and there were no journalism jobs. And so my mother said to me, and now mind you, my mother did not go to college, but she is an incredibly intelligent, insightful person. And she said to me, you said you always wanted to go to graduate school, which by the way, I never did. And you should make a choice. What do you want to do? Go to law school or get an MBA? And I thought about it, and I really, really love to write. That's my passion. And I knew that I would be able to do more writing in the law than I would be able to do in business. Plus, it was very important to me to be able to support my family financially. It was just me, and at that time when I started law school, a 1-year-old child. And I knew that I would be able to go out and hang my own shingle if needed, which I have done actually, and support myself and my daughter. I knew I would never have to depend upon anybody else. And so I started law school at the University of Akron. I started at night. I worked full time. I went to school part time, 3 nights a week, 4 hours a night, and I had a child. So it wasn't easy, but it was well worth it. But yes, that was a defining moment when my mother said to me, what do you want to do? Go to law school or get an MBA? I didn't realize those were all my only 2 choices, but it worked out great.
All right. Yeah, it definitely sounds like you chose the right choice there. What was it like entering the legal field as a woman 40 years ago? What were some of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome?
There were huge challenges to overcome as a woman going into law 40 years ago. And going into the profession, the legal profession, as a single parent and a woman was doubly challenging because back in those days, there was no life-work balance. As an associate in a law firm, you went into the law firm, you got into the office before the partners did, and you didn't leave until the last partner left. And everything was about billable hours, and the expectations were very high. That was a challenge. I remember saying to my managing partner one afternoon, we were talking about billable hours, and I said, let me ask you this. And he was a gentleman, a super guy. And I said, who does your grocery shopping? Who does your cooking? Who cleans your house? Who does your dry cleaning? Who runs your errands? Who takes care of your kids? Who does all of these things? Well, my wife. I said, I don't have a wife. I am the wife. So I have a full-time job and a full-time job. And we remained good friends throughout my career. And that conversation, we have revisited it. And I think it really made him understand that women had much greater challenges going into the field of law than men did because we had much greater responsibilities. Fortunately now, in your generation, men are stepping up to the plate, have stepped up to the plate, and are equal partners. At that time, I didn't even have a partner, let alone an equal. So it was tough. And as a woman, you just didn't had the same credibility as men did, especially in the field that I'm in, and I do litigation. I'm in court. And, back in 40 years ago, it was no big deal for an older male attorney or judge to call you hon and sweetie and, oh, it's okay, sit down, we'll let you know when we need you. Very patronizing. And I don't think it was ever intentional, but that was just the way things had developed to that point. And I think I was on, not the leading edge, but the beginning of women coming into my profession and being more openly accepted. So yeah, it was tough. For women these days, I think it's much easier, but there are more women in the field. these days. In fact, I believe there are more women in law school now than there are men. So we are taking over.
Slowly but surely. So you've had quite the career, serving in government, opening your own practice, and giving back to the community. What have been some of your proudest moments?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because I was fortunate enough to be in a position 30 years ago in 1994 when the Ohio State Legislature overhauled workers' compensation. And that's my area of practice. I represent employers in workers' compensation matters. And as a result, they appointed a brand new commission, and the commission was appointed by then Governor Voinovich, and we were tasked by the legislature to do a complete overhaul. Had I known what I was getting into, I would have never thrown my name in the hat. And but I did, and I was appointed by Governor Voinovich to be the first woman chair of the Ohio Industrial Commission. And what I am most proud of is I was the public member. There was an employer member and an employee member, and there are many parties to what happens in workers' compensation. And we brought those parties, everybody, to the table, representatives to the table, to work on the programs and the policies that the legislature had set out for us to do, that the Supreme Court had told us we needed to take care of. And we worked for a long time, over a period of a few years, and we were able to institute and adopt new policies and procedures for the operation of the workers' compensation systems, specifically the adjudication, where you go in for hearings and things. It used to take months and months and months to get a hearing at the Industrial Commission. We changed it so it's maybe weeks. It used to take months to get an order from a hearing. It now takes weeks. We made massive changes. And the thing I'm most proud of is that 30 years later, those changes are still in place. And nobody has been able to come in and change them, because we brought everybody to the table. We worked across the aisles. We raised our voices. But when we walked out of that room, we knew we were doing a good thing overall for the system. People compromised, made accommodations, and I'm very proud of the fact that those programs and systems are still in place 30 years later.
Awesome. Sounds like it is withstanding time, that's for sure.
Yeah, all the stars were aligned.
So what keeps you motivated and passionate about your work after so many years?
Oh, God. You do, after you've been doing something for 40 years, it does tend to not be the same, but the laws don't change all that often. But what keeps me motivated is the facts of every case are different. The people are different. The circumstances are different. The challenges are different. Every now and then, even though I've been doing this for longer than you've been alive, frankly, every now and then I get something new that I'm just fascinated by. And I will go down that rabbit hole and I will do that research. And it may be, as my husband says, useless knowledge of which I am full, but it's interesting to me. And so there's always something new, and every case is factually different.
It's good to have variety, that's for sure. What's something people misunderstand about your field?
People think, number one, that lawyers are liars. Lawyers are not liars. Most people think that lawyers are money hungry and ambulance chasers and money grabbers. And what I would like people to know is that the major overall majority of lawyers are very, very, very dedicated people, dedicated to doing what's the best for their clients, doing what's the best for society. Our profession is bound by a legal and ethics code and a code of professionalism that the Ohio Supreme Court requires us to follow. And in addition, our profession has more members who are active volunteer and in city government than any other, and in government than any other profession. I think that people misunderstand that we are really, for the most part, I believe, of course, everybody has to make a living, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with making a living. Most, I would say, the overwhelming majority of attorneys are just there to make sure that their clients are well represented and that they want to do the best for their clients. And God bless the legal aid attorneys. I want to give them a shout out, because they work their rear ends off for very little money for people who do not have the resources to go to a big dollar attorney. So want to give the legal aid attorneys a shout out. They deserve at least that.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about AI here for a second. It's becoming a big player in law. What are your thoughts on how it's changing the field? Are there positives and or are some concerns?
I've taken several courses over the last year on AI in the law because even though I've been practicing for 40 years, I don't want to fall behind. I don't want to be out of touch with my profession. What I like about AI is it makes my research faster, which is great. I don't have to go down those rabbit holes that I would usually go down because AI may have already done that. However, the caveat to that is you still have to fact check what AI gives you. When AI first came out, there was an instance where an associate in a law firm, not here in Ohio, but used AI to write a brief, and it was submitted to the court. And when the court's legal assistant went to check the sites, all the cases were made up because AI just didn't know how to do it. That was a problem. So I think there are definitely advantages to using AI in the law, but I think with AI as in anything, you really have to be careful, and because you're ultimately responsible for what you put out there. You have to fact check what you get.
That's true. There's a lot of things out there that, especially in like the content field, people can just put things out there, and unfortunately, right now in society, people would believe it without checking and seeing the sources. So it's very important to check your facts, folks. If you don't hear anything out of this conversation today, make sure you continuously fact check your sources. So how do you continue to grow professionally?
Well, we have requirements by the Ohio Supreme Court that we have to have a certain number of continuing legal education each year. In addition, I'm a certified specialist by the Ohio Supreme Court in the field of workers' compensation. So I have to go above and beyond and take additional classes that are certified for that purpose. I also teach seminars throughout the year for the Ohio State Bar Association and other educational institutions. And of course, I read all the journals, and not all the journals, but in my particular practice area, I read the journals and try to keep up with everything I possibly can.
Yeah, a lot of information out there. Hard to read everything.
Oh, yeah.
So you're deeply involved in the Wayne County and Wooster community, City Council, Boys and Girls Club, Citizens Police Academy, and some more. Why is it so important to you that you give back?
I have been incredibly blessed in my life to have, I would consider, more than most people are privileged to have. Opportunities particularly. And I've had the opportunity to make a good living. I've had an opportunity to live in a wonderful community. And I feel that if you are so blessed, then you have an obligation to give back. And this is a great community. I really enjoy Wooster City Council. It's the one place anymore that I believe the one place anymore in government where politics doesn't count. You walk in, I'm an independent, we have Republicans, we have a Democrat. Nobody even looks at that. We look at what can we do to make the city of Wooster better? What can we do to make sure that the citizens are getting their tax dollars worth? I really enjoy that. In addition, I'm president of Wooster Boys and Girls Club. I'm so committed to that. The kids involved there are wonderful. The staff is wonderful. I just think it's really important for me, for my fulfillment, quite frankly, because I get so much more out of these things, I believe, than I put into them. I really get a sense of satisfaction and that I'm doing something for my fellow human being.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely good to give that helping hand where you can. What's one lesson you learned from your community involvement that has impacted your career or your personal life?
That is a good question. One lesson I've learned professionally is I feel I'm actually kind of fortunate that my clients are generally large corporations outside of Worcester. So I really don't have any, and I don't know if anyone else does, but I never feel any pressure to do one thing or do another thing. I'm pretty independent professionally from my volunteer activities, although I do assist pro bono with some legal work. Personally, how it's impacted, I have learned that being out there in the community, you have to get a thick skin. People are going to love what you do. People are going to hate what you do, but everybody's got an opinion, and everybody has an opinion on what you are doing, what you are saying, what you are posting. And I'm one of those people. I'm an open book. A great lesson I learned when I worked for George Vornovich was his chief of staff told me, if you don't want it on the front page of the newspaper, don't do it, don't say it. And that's the way I operate. I'm pretty much an open book, but being an open book and letting people know who I am, again, I've had to get a pretty thick skin because people are apt sometimes to hide behind social media with their attacks. And I try to respond with facts, but sometimes that's like fighting fire with a trickle of water.
Some people just want to see the world burn. There's nothing you can do about it. If you could change or improve one thing about the Wooster community, what would it be?
There's not a whole lot I would change about Wooster. I've lived different places, and this community is the most generous, the most giving, the most open community that I've ever lived in. I think that if I could change anything, and this is not just for Worcester, I think this has to go across the board, is I wish that people would listen and be open-minded before they make decisions and draw conclusions. There are a lot of things that we encounter that are controversial that we have to vote on, and I think it's important that people know the facts before they come to a conclusion. I always told the hearing officers who worked for me, I don't care what decision you make, but it has to be supported by facts and law. And I will not, I have no opinion on that. People can have opinions, but they should be educated when they form their opinions.
Yes. So you opened your practice in 2020, which was a pretty bold move, given circumstances of everything that happened that year. What's been the biggest lesson you've learned from that transition?
I have had a varied practice where I have worked in large law firms. I've worked in small law firms. I have worked for the government. I've worked for large companies in-house. And in 2020, as you said, things are really up in the air. And I was traveling back and forth to Canton, where I was in a firm, partner in a firm. And with COVID, of course, everybody was working from home. And I discovered that because I am on the road so much, I'm out doing hearings in Cleveland and Mansfield and Akron and Youngstown, and it just didn't make sense for me to work in an office with someone else outside of Wooster, Ohio. And the firms here, there wasn't really a good fit for me. Not many people do what I do. So I decided to open up my own firm, and I've done that for the past 4.5 years. I absolutely love it. What it does is it gives you so much more freedom to decide what cases you take, to decide what work you want to do. I've learned that I am much more capable as far as a legal secretary and paralegal goes than I ever thought I would be. Although I did start my career out as a legal secretary.
There you go, folks. She has a lot of experience.
So I learned quite a bit, and I would encourage people to be entrepreneurs. It's great to work for yourself. I mean, sometimes you like your boss and sometimes you hate your boss, but most of the time it's pretty good.
Yeah. I think definitely having the freedom to dictate your schedule, and then also more importantly, who and what you work on is huge, right?
Yes.
So let's say we had a crystal ball here. We could see what the future has for Barbara Knapic. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Gosh. Well, right now, I am considering whether or not I'm going to run for city council again. As an independent, I have to file by May the 5th. And I have been on city council for a total now of almost 12 years. And I really enjoy it. But we have a really good group of people there right now. And we have good candidates. So I may or may not be on city council. I still believe I will be active in the community, but really what I want to be doing 5 years from now, we have 4 kids. One lives in Cleveland, one lives in Northern California, one lives in Seattle, and one lives in Colorado. I would like to spend a lot of time in those locations with the kids, because it's hard when you only see them a few times a year.
Oh, yeah. No, especially those are some really great places to visit, too.
Thank goodness.
If anything, you taught them to go somewhere nice.
Nobody moved to the desert. Nobody moved to, where there's only snow. It's good. It's all good.
So you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what's next for you? Are there any big plans on the horizon?
Again, looking at another run for city council and traveling. I really like like to travel. We have a little teardrop camper that is just darling. Like to take that out a little bit more. Big plans? No, I've done a lot of big things in my life. Um, I'm looking forward to little plans and little accomplishments and just every day being another adventure.
Great. So, what advice would you give someone considering a career in law today?
I would say absolutely go for it. I think right now it is such an important field to be in, particularly in constitutional law and governmental law, for so many reasons. In fact, I have volunteered with the Ohio State Bar Association to go out and teach constitutional law in high schools because we just don't have that right now. And with all of the election issues, with all the civil rights issues, with all of the what can the government do and what they can't do questions, I think that it is really important to have people out there who are experts in what did the founding fathers want? What were we supposed to look like? What was the goal? And how do we stay on track of that? So I think it's a very important field, and I think it's a very necessary field. And I've enjoyed all 40 years of it. So I would encourage someone to go into law. And even if you're going into an area that is transactional and less people intensive, be sure to carve out some time, as actually the Ohio State Bar Association requires you to do, carve out some time for some pro bono work. Do some good things on the side because we have the capability.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So who has been instrumental in your success and how have they shaped your journey?
Well, of course, I told you the story about my mom saying, what do you want to do? Be a lawyer or get an MBA, when I didn't know I really wanted to do either one of those things. But it was posed at a perfect time in my life. And absolutely, Governor George Voinovich, former House Speaker Joanne Davidson, and former Attorney General Betty Montgomery. I often say that there are public servants and there are politicians, and usually those are not the same. You can be a good politician and be a lousy public servant. You can get into office but not do the public service end of things. You can be a fabulous public servant and not be a good politician, which means you won't get yourself into those positions where you can actually do good as a public servant. Those three people were exemplary at being both good politicians and good public servants. They knew how to get elected. They knew how to form coalitions. They knew how to bring people together. And they truly, truly operated for the good of the state of Ohio in general, overall. And while all three are Republicans or were Republicans, they worked very closely, each and every one of them, with the other party and with the Democrats and accomplished great things. So those would be my role models as far as my career has gone.
Good. It's always good to have role models. I'm sure someone listening to this thinks you're a role model. It's Friday night and you're going out to eat. Where are you headed?
Well, the first thing I'm going to check out, quite frankly, is what the food truck is at the brewery. Yesterday it was the lobster roll truck. They've always got great food down there.
Sure.
And needless to say, whether you drink alcohol or not, they have great beer too. And so that's a good relaxing Friday night. You don't have to dress up. You don't have to impress anybody, just hanging out there. So that's probably what I would do on a Friday night. But any place, I mean, Wooster is the mecca of amazing restaurants. I often wonder, we have so many restaurants, so many good restaurants here, and how can we possibly support them? And yet they are all thriving, which I'm thrilled about.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. One of my next segments is going to be interviewing some chefs in food trucks. So really looking forward to that. So if you're listening to this and you are a chef or have a food truck, you'd like to be on the show, just let me know. So where can people usually find you during the day?
Right here in my office. I'm usually here. As you've noticed, my black cat comes in. She comes in and helps me work occasionally, walks across the keyboard, stares at the monitors, makes me take a break. But I'm usually in my office or I'm in my car. This week I had hearings in Mansfield, hearings in Cleveland, hearings in Youngstown, meetings in Cleveland. I'm on the road quite a bit as well.
So what's your favorite movie and why does it resonate with you?
I don't know that many people will know what this movie is, but it's called the The Secret of the Yaya Sisterhood. And it is about a bunch of women who grow up together. They're kids, they're together, they're good friends. They grow up, they deal with one of their daughter's issues in this movie, but it is a wonderful movie about supportive friends and breaking out of designated roles, and just having other people to lean on in those difficult times in your life. And I have been, again, blessed by having a small group of girlfriends that have done that for me. So every time I watch it, I think about us, and I laugh, and I just think it's so wonderful to have that type of relationship where you can be crazy, you can do the most stupid things, and nobody's going to say anything.
That's right. So what would you say is the best thing about your life right now?
Wow. The best thing, I have really good balance right now in my life. I am semi-retired, and so a lot of the stressful work that I had, say, over the past several years has gone by the wayside, and I'm able to find time and make time in my schedule to do things like this. Later on, I'm going down to City Hall to work on some tax issues, which, believe me, I'm not a tax attorney. This was a whole learning experience for me to work on, to learn about some tax issues, not to work on them, but to learn about them. After that, I'm going to be meeting with some people to work on a grant for the Wooster Police Academy Alumni Association. And after that, I'm going to the Boys and Girls Club offices to work on something else. And then after that, I'm going to the Kent State Gymnastics meet where I competed and in gymnastics in college. So that to me is just like the perfect day. I got work done. I got to meet with you and spend time with you and all those other things. That's perfect balance for me.
Nice. Awesome. So let's say someone wants to get involved in maybe the city council, Boys and Girls Club, or the Citizens Police Academy. What would be the best way to get in contact with those organizations?
For city council, reach out to any city council representative. I am at large, and you can reach me. And yes, I will give my telephone number out here. It's 330-417-6393. I encourage people in the city to call me with issues, with questions. And then I will tell you what you can do to get involved in city government here in Worcester. There are a lot of opportunities to become involved in the community. As for the Worcester Police Academy, you have to be an alumni of the class. I was one of the members of the first class that went through. But they're looking for people, all kinds of people, to take this class. It meets once a week for a period of time, and it is absolutely fascinating and educational. And then for Boys and Girls Club, again, you can reach out to me and we can get you hooked up for volunteer services, for donations. And we are in our annual drive. We always need donations. And yeah, just reach out and I'll get you connected.
Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, Barbara. You're definitely a jewel here in Wayne County and Worcester, and you impact a lot of lives. For anyone else that needs some more contact information, you're welcome to reach out to myself at 330-221-1547. You guys have a great day.